All right, well, here we go. We are 2 weeks, well, less than 2 weeks away. We are 2 days into Unit 7, and we have, I think, some really fun content to look at. We've got some great articles, some really important chapters to check out, and some great content to read in Schwen and Bass. Just again, let me just say I've just really enjoyed getting to take part in the learning process and seeing kind of these aha moments take place. You know, if I was there kind of in these, I guess I would even say it as a kind of a light bulb moment. It's really obvious through your writings and the conversations that are going on. So again, thanks for all you've just invested in this learning process. So much fun to do. So where are we headed? We are headed this this week. We will be looking at career counseling in community settings. So I know a number of us, that's really kind of this big push these days is how do we think from a community standpoint. There's lots of different dynamics that come into play with that. There's work environment factors that play in. There's just parts, areas that we grew up in, cities and expectations and all the things that come with that. So and how do we, based upon we looked at last week, design career development programs and interventions that serve constituents, that serve those in our area, that serve potential clients, and so forth. And then we dig into adult career development. And this is a really interesting one because this is probably primarily where the vast majority of you will end up spending your time. So you'll notice that we skipped chapters 11 and 12. So went from chapter 10 and 10 to chapters 13 and 14 this week. And that was because some of you may end up in certain, I guess you could say, age groups with younger populations. The reality is that most of you won't. Now, I could be wrong. I know that I've had some students that have come into the program and they've, or to this course, I should say, and they're working in high schools or junior highs, and they're doing kind of a school psychology type role, but under the umbrella of MFT training. So I know that there's all sorts of opportunities that we will end up pursuing, and we may not do the traditional route, or at least how I might think of that. But I would say that what I have found is the vast majority of the students with whom I have worked have gone on to work with kind of the 18 plus, right? And obviously if you're working with individuals, younger individuals, they're probably going to be more kind of family based. But when we're thinking about career development, you're probably going to, if you were to pursue this as a viable option, you're probably going to be working with an older type of student. I just finished with a client, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And they were almost 40 years old. And right on the tail end of finishing with that client, I picked up another one that's probably somewhere, I would say probably around 45 years old. And I would say that the vast majority of the clients that I have a chance to work with are somewhere in that age group, 40, 45, 50. A lot of these folks are kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say midlife crises, but they're in a place of trying to figure out what's this next kind of chapter of their life. And they're asking questions and they're feeling a bit unfulfilled. And had a really interesting conversation today with a good friend who has many years on me of experience in leadership development and coaching, been a faculty member for a very long time, a great institution, Harvard PhD, two postdocs, one from Harvard, one from Stanford. I mean, just you name it. Actually, one from Carnegie Mellon, one from Stanford, PhD from Harvard. Just a brilliant individual. And we were talking about work and the work that I do. I said that I've actually backed off a bit in using assessments and instrumentations for interventions because a lot of the work that I'm doing is asking questions. In fact, I saw something to the effect of how the very purpose of a coach, right? So we'll kind of couch coach within the same kind of the guise of counseling, at least in the career component. I know there's very different verbiage when it comes to therapy. But in my role is not to give advice. In fact, I told this individual I worked with last week, I'm not here to give advice. I'm not here to offer up suggestions and things. I think you need to do this. Right? I'll give you some information. I'll broker the content that's available. But I'm not going to give you advice and tell you what I think you could or could not or should not do. So most of my work these days really comes from a place of asking questions, digging deep. And if a client wants to use an assessment, then absolutely we will. And I think it's important that I have the certifications. I think it's important if you're to go this route to have certifications and designations and the ability to administer and interpret assessments and so forth. But I don't know that that's always the most valuable thing. What this individual was saying to me today at lunch was kind of pushing back on my take that I'm having more conversation. I really find that folks are, they're not. I don't find that the most valuable work that we can do is simply helping somebody get a job. I find the most valuable work that we can do is helping somebody figure out who they are. Richard Rohr has said famously that once we get the who am I question taken care of, the what should I do question tends to take care of itself. And that's, I don't think all that, it's not too simple, not overly simplistic. It's a simple answer, but I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I think that once we are more and more content with who we are, we will become more and more content with the work that we've been given a chance to do. And a lot of that is going to take place with this older, and I say older, I don't mean like 65 plus, but I mean an older individual, 35, 40 years old, that's had a career, and they're looking to potentially make a shift, or they're wanting to move up, or they're kind of languishing and not really sure what's next. And they thought they wanted to go one route. I heard of an individual that I've been acquaintances with for several years who had a very successful career in higher education and actually quit a job without having another job because they wanted to, even though their training was specifically in higher education administration, they wanted to go be an elementary school teacher. These things happen. And I think that as great as that is, that this individual wants to pursue that, I think sometimes the role that I get to play, I wish now, I hear these stories of folks, I wish they would have come to see me. I have a friend that was in career counseling and ended up leaving his job without having a job. Fortunately found another great job, way better job. And we've had conversation. And here's an individual that is in the career space. And I just wish they would have come to me so we could have had a conversation. Because I do think that we have insights. We have things, even though you've only been in this class for almost 6.5 weeks, you have been given, really, I think, the gift of information. I've talked about how, I've had a chance just to kind of lay before you this buffet or this smorgasbord, or really just this feast, this beautiful feast of career counseling and development theories and techniques related information, education, so that you can help people think through a lot of these career development, career-related processes and challenges. So this is very important. I was talking to another guy a couple weeks ago, and I think a lot of the times what I'm doing in this class, I want to bring to you the real life things, right? We have theory. I love theory. Kurt Lewin says there's nothing so practical as a good theory. I think that's right. I think that's accurate. I love theory. And I also love practicality. I love the pragmatic, practical, praxis-based, this is how we do this. And in these conversations, I was talking to an individual, and I said, sometimes I feel like, it's interesting that the folks that need help the most are oftentimes the folks that don't have the money to pay because they're out of work. And I said, sometimes I want to make it available, pro bono and all that. And he said, I think that there's value in kind of having some skin in the game. People will find the money if they need the money to pay for this, because once they've invested in it, they're more likely to listen. And I hear that, and I think that's great advice, but I also hear that and I go, wow, that's a lot of responsibility. Because if someone is willing to take their cold, hard cash, right, their hard-earned money, and pay me, or eventually pay you to do this work, we have an incredible responsibility that's resting on our shoulders to ensure that we are giving them the best coaching that we possibly can. And I would argue that by doing that, we are asking the best questions. We're the most equipped. We're the best prepared to serve them and offer this information so that they can then make the best decisions that's right for them. Because you know you best. I know me best. They know them best. And so we can't project onto somebody or somebodies what it is that we think they should do, because we don't know what they need to do. But I do know that I can confidently say that if we can help somebody to figure out who they are and what is it kind of at the core of what they want to do, I think that those are the most important questions that will then help people to figure out what it is they're going to do and what they're going to pursue, right? Let's kick all these ideas around, and then let's actually figure out what's next, and then let's come up with some tangible goals and objectives to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And so that's this complex reality that occurs in the adult reality, the adult component, the adult kind of time frame of career development. So when we're talking about this content, can you have a childhood career development, junior high, high school? Absolutely. But the conversations for the work that I think is really at the heart of what we're talking about in this class is going to take place more often than not with the adult and the emerging adult, like the 18 to 25-year-old. Here's the interesting thing, and Meg J has a great talk that she gives that we're going to watch this week, titled 30 is Not the New 20. And she talks about this reality that our frontal lobe is not even fully developed until we're 25 years old. So how on earth, I'll just paraphrase kind of what I took from this and what I heard her say. How on earth can we expect an 18-year-old college student to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives? I don't think we can. I don't think we should. But here's the thing that happens, and I've talked about this before. We expect an 18 to 25-year-old to have their lives figured out. Where are you going to go to college? What are you going to study? When are you going to be done with college? What are you going to do when you're done with college? You're going to go to grad school? What job are you going to get? Right? We kind of have these things laid out and we project what they should do. But they're 22 years old. Their frontal lobe's not even fully developed. How can they make these lifelong decisions? So probably many of us in this class, I know myself, we chose undergraduate degrees. We're like, why did I do that? So we went back to grad school to pursue something that we knew we would be more interested in that would help us kind of succeed from a career standpoint. Once that person turns 25, they're 26, 27, our culture, our civilization these days has come to expect much less from that person. Oh, you're only 28 years old, you got the whole life ahead of you. But what happened between the ages of 18 and 25 when we expect you to have your life figured out? Or what happened when you were 17, oh, you're in high school, just enjoy your life. Take your time. But then there's that window of what we call emergent adulthood, and you go, whoa, back up, pump the brakes a bit. Why are we why is there such high expectations that you know exactly what you want to do? And so we have an opportunity to work with, I think it's a vulnerable population. I think it's a malleable population. I think it's a population that's in search of and in need of great career counseling, career coaching, career advice, career strategy, to think deeply about what's going to be the most ideal route for you to go. Now, of course, we can't guarantee success in the future, but we can certainly ask the questions that will help them figure out who they are. And so for me, as I think about this, when I talk about career development and vocation, maybe I've mentioned this before, but I believe that I'm not as concerned about what I do for work. My identity is not in my work. My identity is who I am and whose I am. So as a follower of Jesus, as a Christ follower, as a child of God, my identity is wrapped up in that. And that's the thing that cannot be taken from me. Work comes and goes. So if our identity is in what we do, that becomes very problematic because that work can go away very quickly. And so we then lose our identity when that work disappears. And so one of the things that I get a chance to do is help people to think strategically about that very thing. That who are you? Like, what's most important to you? What's your beliefs that you hold to? What are your values, your virtues? And how can you then live those things out as you do fill in the blank job? And if that job goes away, can you still be that person and do those things just in a different role? And I think that's absolutely possible to do. Okay, so Meg J, why 30 is not the new 20. You've got this video. There's a couple of articles, great articles actually to read. Career anchors and job role planning, and then the resume's secret identity. Optional discussion 6, you've got your 7th Schwen and Bass entry and discussion, your 7th case study, your 5th exercise. I hope you're enjoying those exercises. I hope that you'll kind of have them stay with you so you remember what it was that you did, not just I completed the assignment, I'm good, but actually helpful for you as you pursue what's next for you in your career. And then, of course, your LibTech 321 number 5. Okay? And then I'm going to post a video later this week answering some questions you asked last week, and then also giving you a heads up on where we're headed for our final 2 assignments. So again, thanks for all your great work. Really enjoying what's happening in this class. I hope the same could be said for you. Hope that you're really just feasting on the content, and you'll find this to be one of those things that, I loved it when I was eating that meal, and then afterwards you have this amazing thought of, man, that food was so good. I had this great lunch in Pasadena today, and it was the same idea. I'm just thinking about it right now. It's so good. And I hope that you'll think about that in the same way as it relates to this class. years, months, days, weeks, whatever it is down the road as you consider what it was that we learned this week. Have a great week, or this class. Have a great week, and we will look forward to seeing you online this unit.